Welcome to Blender add-on development for beginners. In this module, we're going to develop an add-on that will rig a curve. Let me show you what I mean. Let's add a Bezier curve and switch to edit mode. We subdivide it and a few more times until we have a curve with quite a few control points. Let's move some of the points around a bit and then make sure all handles are set to automatic. So now we have a curve with a smooth kink. Let's give it a bevel depth so we can see it a bit better. And now let's see what our add-on can do. It is located in the object menu, and if we select it, we instantly get a rig. This consists of a bunch of empties and an armature, and when we go to pose mode, we can manipulate the rig via its last bone, which has inverse kinematics enabled. But we can of course also pose individual bones. Tip: if you don't like the relationship lines, you can disable them in the overlay settings, but that has nothing to do with our add-on. The deformation of the curve is done by hooks, and you can imagine that creating an armature by hand with that many bones, empties and hook modifiers is a lot of work. So that's why we will develop an add-on for it. Before we start looking at the code in detail, I would like to share how to find out what you need. Even though I've developed quite a few add-ons, I don't know how to find everything because Blender's Python API is large and complex. So what I often do is to start some discovery from the Python console. So let's change the timeline into a Python console and enlarge it a bit, so that's a bit easier to follow. We have the curve object selected, so let's see if the context reflects that. And yes, our active object is our Bezier curve. And when we look at the type attribute, we see we are indeed dealing with a curve object. Its data attribute will point to curve data, but that curve data object itself does not print anything when we access it, but we can see that it is not none when we use the type function. Now in our add-on, we want to know the coordinates of the control points, so let's see if we can find those. If we expand the options after the dot by pressing tab, we get a boatload of attributes, far too many to easily try out, so we have to go somewhere else. That somewhere else is the Blender API documentation, and we select the current version. We want to know more about the curve object type, so that's what we type in the search box. It is already highlighted because I have been there before, of course. And when we click it, we get an interesting list of attributes. And here you have to know a bit about Blender already. And that is that a curve object is not a single item, but has one or more so-called splines. Let's look in the right sidebar if we can find something like that, and we do. The splines attribute apparently holds a collection of spline objects. And like any Blender collection, it has a new method, etc, etc. And as we will see later, we can also index the collection to get at the individual spline objects. Let's see what a single spline looks like. So an individual spline has a Bezier points attribute, but only if it's a Bezier type. Other types of curve are possible too. If it is a Bezier, the Bezier spline point has the information we are looking for. For example, the CO attribute has the position of the control point, while the handle left and handle right attributes will hold the position of the handles. Let's see if we can use this information to retrieve the locations of the control points. So we access the splines attribute with an S at the end. That works, so we get the first one, indexed by 0 as usual. Then we access its Bezier points, nothing to see, but we know it's a collection, so let's use the len function to see how many there are. 17 apparently, so let's verify that. We switch to edit mode, and with all the points selected, we see 51 vertices, which is alright, because we also have all handles selected, and 3 times 17 is 51. Okay. Now let's loop over all those Bezier points and see if we can get their positions. And there they are. Looks good to me. So armed with this knowledge, we can go to the next video and see how we can put this knowledge to use by creating some code for an add-on. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.